Okay, welcome to episode 6 of our Website Builders Live. I'm hoping it's gone live already. If not, I apologize for jumping in a bit too soon. Okay, okay, that seems to be working. So we're going to, so today we're going to look at Squarespace email campaigns, and it's something that I've been wanting to jump back into for a little while. I've created actually a mini course on Udemy a couple of years ago, and Squarespace email campaigns has changed a little bit since then. And more recently, I've had the opportunity from one of our clients, Vicky, we've just launched a website called Coity Bach, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. It's a Squarespace website, and we're looking at ways of taking up to the next level. So how to manage communications. It's a holiday let, so email communication is really important, and a lot of this will happen after the sales. So with after sales email, our approach can be slightly different, but ultimately we want to get a good balance between a nice glossy look and feel to it, but at the same time, it needs to be quick enough loading. And I can show you a tip to get your images nice and compressed for mail shots as they go out. In fact, I completely forgot to do that when I uploaded them to the system, so that one's on me. And we're going to have a look at that today. I'm not sure how long this session is going to be. I've also taken the liberty of taking the existing emails that Vicky's provided me and put them into a Google Doc. That means that we can just copy and paste the content in and start building the structure around the content. There's two examples, one which will transfer really well over to this type of email, another one that's going to give us a bigger headache, but I won't go into that until we have a good look at it as well. I was going to take the day off. It's my birthday, and I lasted about an hour before I got bored and thought I'd jump in and do a live call. So that probably says a lot about me. But yeah, I'm fighting those demons. But at the same time, it's nice to just jump in and try out something different as well. And I'm actually really looking forward to doing this particular workshop. So if you want to learn how to get your head around Squarespace email campaigns, create professional looking mail shots, or if you're just intrigued about what the campaigns tool is, and the short answer is it's probably a direct competitor for the likes of MailChimp. The benefits are that it's integrated in Squarespace. So that means that we don't have to leave Squarespace to manage our mail shots. Even things like collecting emails through a newsletter sign up or automatically adding them to mailing lists when they, in this case, make a booking. All of that is covered. It's also GDPR compliant here in Europe and the UK. So we've got all of that aspect in place. It follows good practice as well, as you would hope. And yeah, it's a really good solution. It's not the cheapest, but if you use it heavily, I suppose with everything, it becomes really good value, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm not pushing you to go ahead with Squarespace email campaigns as a trial that you can use with it, or you can just sample with a very small mailing list size, which may be enough for you. But I think that's probably enough of an introduction. I'm going to share my screen now and we're going to jump in and have a go. So I'm going to share the entire desktop. So the ratio may not be perfect for a 16:9 screen, so I'm working directly on my MacBook. Also, I might be glowing like a ghoul at the moment just because of the white coming off the screen. So you'll just have to stick with me on that one. So let's have a look at the emails to start with. So we've got one here, which is, I think, a perfect length for this type of email. And what I'm going to try and do is combine a traditional email letter style for the first bit. But when we take links here, we can signpost them off potentially visually. And the same with these as well. Whilst the icons, emojis can work well for that, I think we can swap them with photos. Just if someone's made a booking for a holiday let, you want them to get excited about the look and feel of it. So that's where we can put a few photos in there that have been resized down so that they're nice and fast loading. And I think that will really help as well. And then we've got a longer email here, which I think is going to be a real struggle to put into a newsletter format and get all of that in. So what I've suggested is that we do a truncated version of this, which I probably won't have time to do today because I'm going to focus on the shorter email. But if I can create a template, maybe even just a shorter version of this as a final reminder, and then we can put all this content on a landing page that's not on Google, we could, or we don't have to, but we could password protect that page as well. And that's where we can signpost the email towards. So they can receive a normal looking email, but if they want to find out more then about each of these areas, like for example, finding us in poor weather, and we can look at that as well. So what I'm going to do is open ChatGPT. Now I've got the ChatGPT to match my tone of voice, so it means that there's lots of things that I don't have to redo. So what I'm going to do first of all is take this email in its entirety, and I'm going to give a prompt. This is a very hope it's not at its best this today. So we can say that the email's too long. We need a truncated version that gets all points across in the current tone of voice, then links to a single landing page. Because in a landing page, we can use accordions where we can put the titles of maybe the questions like FAQs and then expand them then to have the answers for each. So that's something we can. Email technology has fallen behind web technology. So it's much, much harder to put custom fonts in on an email. To get an email to look fully bespoke, we may even have to use sliced up graphics, which is really old school. It's what I was doing in the late 90s, early noughties. And yeah, and so it's not, email just hasn't come on in the same rate as web and responsive web design has. So therefore, we are limited to a degree in terms of what we can put into emails. And so that's why signposting to a page that has everything, a bit like a booklet or a handbook for your stay, where they can spend the time on the site, have a look through it, and see some nice additional photos, etc. as well. To go through all of that in an email, and Vicky said that herself. She said like some of them they won't see all of the information because they'll glaze over it, and that's a bit of a problem managing this going forward. So I put a colon at the end of the prompt just so ChatGPT knows all about that. And then I'm going to punch that in. So ChatGPT loves to do this where we've got bullet points with colons at the start. I've tried to prompt it out of it because it's one of the telltale signs that it is ChatGPT. I think that's probably too short, so I'm just going to ask it to make it twice as long. But with ChatGPT, we don't need to re-put in that initial prompt because it should just pick it up and run with it from there. But already this is much easier to digest and to understand. So this is where Vicky would need to go through it and probably swap out some of this content with content that is more applicable. Some of this may not be high priority, and ChatGPT may not know all of that. So that's something that we can look at afterwards. But in terms of length of the email, that's where I would go to afterwards. So we're summarizing it in this email, and then we're linking to a page where we have all of that info in full. And I might even do another workshop where I create that page in future. It might be the next live session. Okay, so with that in mind, we've got made a good start there. So I'll just give you a quick tour of the website before we jump in and start creating that email campaign. So we've got the website homepage here. I think Ken in Pixel A Studio has done a really good job of this. It looks nice, it looks unique and bespoke to this client. I really like the way that he's used the vertical gallery, very much like a TikTok or Facebook Reel. And it lends itself then to taking photos off a camera phone and uploading them directly without having to worry about flipping it to landscape. The hot tub here is a really nice photo. I think that sets the scene lovely. It gives us the location, it gives us the feature. So when I talk about principles of design, and we can carry that across a little bit into photography as well. There's one star of our show, and it's the hot tub, even though the dog's giving it a run for its money. And the atmosphere then, in terms of setting it, everything's drawn into the hot tub in the center, but everything else just pictures it as an idyllic location. I think there are many people in the target audience who would look at that and think, okay, I need to book that. Similar then with the wood burner, some nice finishing touches here that make our job as web designers so much easier when you've got all of those finishing touches in the photos. The dark skies photo here, where you've got the stars at night, and that's beautifully taken. So that was what lent itself to the going almost dark mode with the color selection on the site. This slate, it's not grey, it's not black, it's that bluey grey, dark slate, Welsh slate color, which I think works really well, and it just sets it that mystical wood kind of feel to it as well. And let's not forget the main star of this show. We've got the Coiti Bach itself. I believe, I could be wrong, and if there's any fluent Welsh speakers out there, they can probably correct me on this, but I believe Coiti Bach is the little wood, so, or little woodland. That's what it translates as. So the photos and the amount of flora in these images just backs that up, from the timber used for the cabin right the way through to the woodland setting, and everything just fits in really nicely. We've also integrated a booking software called Bookalet. This is where most of the project time has actually been on, is getting this up and running. It's the first time we've used this software, so naturally there are a couple of teething issues that we need to, I think, just finalize. Nothing major, it's just making sure the emails are going through to the right places. At the moment, I think we're collecting emails and forwarding them, and we're just in contact with them about getting that ironed out. But the focus now is going to change from building and having a professional website through to the next step will be, okay, what's next? And the what's next is very much around emails. So if we go into the asset library here and I go into email campaigns, I've just realized I didn't compress any of these photos before uploading them. So what I'm going to do is there a select all option? Yes, there is down here. So I'm going to select all of these photos and unfortunately delete them all, because I need to practice what I preach. And when I talk about the importance of compressing images for web, it's even more important for emails. So let's bring up a new tab. And the one I use is compressor.io. I've created a couple of tutorials on this, but it's very intuitive, very easy to use. So I'm going to select the files from my computer and I'll see if I can upload them all in one go. Too many files. Okay. So this is free tool, so it limits. There we go. So we'll go with those to start with. And now it's just going to compress those in the background. And we can see here now that some of these photos, this one in particular, nearly 8 megabytes. So it's going to look stunning, but ultimately it doesn't need to be that anywhere near that quality to be able to use that in our email campaigns. And so this one, 69%, 72%, that's how much we're compressing the images by. Even the smaller file sizes, we're going to probably compress them by less. And even some of these are still a 1 megabyte, but what we're doing is we're heavily reducing the size of them by just putting some smart compression on them. We can, of course, do this in other tools like Adobe Photoshop, but this is just the cheapest, most effective way of doing it. Squarespace will compress images slightly, but not anywhere near as good as this will. So if we look at the one that was nearly 8 megabytes, we can see we've saved 90% of that size. That on lots of kind of broadband, but not super fast connections, that will just take an age. You'll just see it coming down step by step on the page. So I really need to do that. So we've saved, that's what we've reduced in terms of that. So if you imagine having 18 megabytes coming into your inboxes, like you can't, on a lot of emails, you can't send attachments over 20 megabytes. So email tools like Google will not like that much. Even if Squarespace compresses them to say 40% of the size, it won't be anywhere near as good as doing this. So anyway, sermon over. We can see now that that's put into a zip file. But before we do any further, I'm just going to refresh it and see if we can do the other three. Hopefully it won't limit us. No, there we go. Here we go. Saved another 5 megabytes. So download all. We've got 2 zip folders now. So I'm just going to double click on them. And now we just need to know to upload from those folders. So we go back to Squarespace. They've moved the asset library around a few times. This was a relatively recent addition. I think it's probably in the last 18 months, Squarespace have actually finally got a folder library set up. Before it was really difficult to find everything. But so I'm a big fan of that. It used to be down the bottom here. It sometimes was in settings. Now it's under website and assets if you're looking for it. And now we're going to upload files. Now we've downloaded them. We can see the compressor.io. It hasn't actually shrunk the size of the photos. They're still large photos, but the compression just means that they're going to be quicker to upload. When we're uploading photos, sometimes we see these errors. I think you can just ignore them. They still work, and we can count now at the end of this. This seems to be a little bug. I'm not sure if it just happens with me or happens with everyone, but we can see of the 9 photos that have been uploaded, only one of them showed without error. But if I refresh it, my money's on, they'll all appear. There we go. So now our photos are all in place. So I don't know, it's not a major bug, but if you see that, just refresh the browser. Let it all finish first and then refresh the browser and it should work then. I'm being a bit slow here. Where's the upload option? Okay. I had my thumbnail overlapping the icon. I thought it'd be something silly like that. So now we go to the second of the 2, and we'll upload the final 3 images. So yeah, that's our housekeeping done. Let's jump in and start using email campaigns. And it's been a while, so I'm going to have to find out where it is, and we can see it here under marketing. Now, I'm really hoping that email campaigns are connected to the asset library. It would be absolutely crazy if it wasn't. But I believe Ken created one demo campaign or a draft email for it. So we're going to have a look at that first. Jump onto preview, and we can see that's looking really nice. Just a single product campaign. We're going to have to do a little bit more than this with our template. But what we can do is, instead of starting from scratch, we can reuse this template. So this could be a campaign, so a one-time send, a subscriber activity, or a customer activity. Now, the one thing is the downside here, we're using a third-party booking software, which is far more advanced for managing bookings, being able to take different types of payments, different payment plans, etc. But the downside is it's not directly integrated into Squarespace email campaigns. Although we're probably going to look at a way of linking it up using something like Zapier, where you can, when something happens on the booking software, it triggers this email in future. But for now, we're just going to create a campaign, which would be you're in control of sending that out to a mailing list that you choose. So the one thing we're going to do to start with is Vicky's going to send this out manually, probably check through her new bookings once or twice a week. And the reason that's fine in this case is simply because there's one premises. So it's not as if it's a hotel with 112 rooms and you're having to do this manually for 3 hours a day. It's going to be a very quick process. It's going to be load up the email account or the contacts that you're going to be sending this email to, send it out, and then we should be golden. So this is the email campaign interface. We can see the email styles on the right here. The reason I reused this one is because we don't have to go and change this, but this is going to be pretty much paint by numbers. We've got a standard email background color. You've got a font pack. The fonts are going to be far more limited on here than they would be for a website. As I was mentioning earlier, email infrastructure just isn't anywhere near as advanced as website infrastructure. So this is our starting template. I can just delete this and then start again. But I think what I'm going to do to start with is just leave this in. I'm going to get ChatGPT, give me a title, this mail shot. Just see what ChatGPT comes up with. Yeah, that could work, or I think I prefer mine. So what we'll do is a combination of we don't need Cutty back in again because we got it at the top. Get rid of any spacing. And now we've got Cutty Bark repeated twice. We don't need that again. And the getting ready for your stay as our title. Okay. Actually, going to repeat the title in here for now, but Vicky will be able to go in and change this to something that's more suitable for what you want. But I'm just double checking that that's not, that we did duplicate the previous template because we want to keep that one as well. So when we look at the email campaigns tool, it's like Squarespace, but it's more like the old Squarespace 7.0 in terms of we've got these similar sections here where we can add in different elements, but it's more structured and rigid in terms of how it's laid out. We don't have the Fluid Engine where we can just take this image and move it around to where we want because of, again, email technology. And I don't mean to keep bang on about that point, but that makes it more limiting. So we can replace the image and we can choose text, but ultimately we've got a small selection of options that we can choose from. What I really like about Squarespace email campaigns is we can actually select items from a blog, our Squarespace blog, and feed them in. So the last three blog posts could be brought in into the page, and it would dynamically feed that through. It allows you to edit the summaries to get them nice and compact. And then when someone clicks on the button, it automatically takes them back to the blog on the website. A really powerful yet simple feature that saves a lot of time in creating emails with this tool. So we've got the option to add in different block types, which we'll go into in just a moment. And then once we've created the block types, we've got different ways of editing the text, as we'd expect. We've got the image editor, which allows us to crop and adjust the photo, and it will create a new version of that photo in the asset library. But I'm going to leave all that for now because we might want to reference it just to keep our style consistent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a new template on top of it or above it. So I'm going to start off with some text. No, I don't want that. I can close that down now. Actually, I'm going to bring ChatGPT closest to it because it'll be easier to jump back and forward. So I'm using Command C and Command V. I'm on a Mac. If you're on a PC, Control C, Control V to copy and paste. And we can see that the text is starting to position ready, but we can also see here that the margins aren't quite right. We can see mail merge tags here. But first of all, we can see that there is no way of editing the spacing of that via this text area here. So what we need to do is go across to the right-hand side here, and we can see the Style tab, and we get all of our options in here. This is where we can adjust the padding left, and this is why it's handy to keep the other content in place. If it was like for like content, I could just copy and paste it over top of that content below. But in this case, it's not. So we need to make sure that we are doing it slightly different. So the one thing I've just spotted here is I can't seem to be updating the text easily enough. So I'm going to remove formatting just to check there's no extra formatting on it. What I am going to do is go back out of this and come back in and see if it gives me the option there. But I should be able to see the different option to change it from paragraph styles to heading styles. So if I go into drafts here, we can see we've got the original template and we've got the new one. So we can edit this template now. And from there, we should just be able to go back in and start working with this again. So what I'm going to do is if it's not giving me the heading style, I'm going to force it. So I'm just going to copy and paste that text in there. And then I'm going to copy and paste this. But what I'm going to do is paste it after the first letter. That means it inherits the style of the rest of that paragraph. And that worked. And I'm just putting placeholder content in there. So instead of having a click here option, I'm going to put a button in, which will be a link to the welcome pack. I'm not going to link it up now because we'll need to create the page first. But I'm going to add a new section and add a button. And here we go to the right-hand side. And I'm going to put it into the burnt orange and then make the text the darker color. And we're probably going to need to just change some of that font. We can align the button to the left. I'll leave the link in for now, but if we click on the cog, we can link to a page on the website via this option here. So it means then we don't have to go and manually get that link, which is another benefit for staying with Squarespace. The section color is transparent because we're going to inherit the rest of the background color of the site, but we could make the whole section a different color to stand out, but I want this to flow really nicely. We've got the padding options again. So again, I want to bring this in just so it aligns nicely to the left. So we've got that clear line. The heading can be central, but then when we get into the content, especially when we're going over multiple lines, it's always nice to keep them nice and uniform. So the best way to get them all perfect is to look at the first text block first, then look at the padding and just double check that we've got the same padding, ideally left and right. But 28 pixels, and then we match them up just so we've got that perfectly aligned text to the left. Okay. So we can see here now that that text isn't very easy to read. So there's two things we're going to do with it. One was we're going to put it in bold, and two, the letter spacing is way off. So I'm going to take that down from, it had 3 times spacing, which was just really hard to read. But there is no way at the moment to increase the font size of that text. Not that I can find. I'll circle back and see if I can change that afterwards, but it may be a case of that's in the overarching styles here. Here we are, font sizes. And then maybe we just have to bring the font size across the board bigger. We're going to have a trade-off there in terms of the amount of space the text takes. So that's something we just need to kind of look into, decide what's suitable. I'm going to leave it as it was before for now. Next up, we're going to add some images to break up this design. And here we've got a couple of different options. We've got list style images, card, and the best thing to do is have a play around with these and see what works for you. But in this case, we're going to go with grid. And we've got set image sizes, or you click on these dots and you can change it to percentage. So for example, 33% means 333. Or 111 to make 3 images across the page. And I think we'll do with that. We'll go with 3 images across, and then we've got the option to align and space them as well. So this is one area that has moved forward since I last worked with it. It was more rigid before, but now there's a bit more fluidity with it, which is nice. So instead of uploading the photos, because we've already compressed them and uploaded them to the asset library, which is a process that whether you're just working with Squarespace or email campaigns, I'd strongly recommend you do, then it just makes it so much easier to select the photos. So I can put 3 photos in, but now we can go in and change them to whatever she wants. I can't find the dark skies photo. So I can go and find that from the other image library afterwards. But so it's only let me add 2 images at a time at the moment. So I'll just upload. Oh, I don't want to upload. I'll just add the 3rd one. Again, select from library. What's the, yeah, the dog. We definitely want the dog in there. So what I can do now is click on this grid on the right-hand side here to move those images and reorder them. But this isn't looking very nice, is it? The photos aren't showing off to their best. So let's just see what we can do. Look at spacing. We can reduce the padding between sections, so that between the section above and below. That's the first thing we can do. Center padding. I want to get all of this padding down to 0. We can align the images left, right, and center, top, middle, or bottom vertically. And that doesn't give us what we want. So we can see here that even when I go on to large image size, so it fills the frame, which is getting closer to what we want, it's still not what we want. So what we're going to do is instead, I'm going to go and I want to edit these images. And now we're going to go to crop and we can go for 3 to 4 or potentially 2 to 3 if we want more vertical photos, but we'll go 3 to 4. That will, and we're going to apply this to all 3 photos. So you can see that's actually not changing it because that was the original ratio, but we can go and do this for the second photo. I may have jumped the gun there. You really should just wait for it to finish processing it before you jump onto the next photo because Squarespace can be a bit quirky with that. But now we're starting to get there. Again, because of limitations with email campaigns, it won't zoom crop on photos like say a website will. So we have to crop the photos. The good thing is this is actually reducing the file size even more. So we've been through the compression. That's the first way of reducing the image size. Squarespace will then create multiple versions of that photo depending on how you're going to use it. Whether if it's a full banner, for example, it will load a higher resolution photo. So for emails, it should have when I say high resolution, sorry, that's not right, larger photos. So what it will do is it will resize photos physically depending on the media used. So this one should be nearer a thumbnail or small to medium sized photo. It will load that instead of loading a huge photo, which is suitable for our main hero for our website or a banner. So if I look at the website itself, it needs a larger image on this for it not to look really pixelated and awful. So Squarespace will actually create multiple versions of the photo when you upload it, and then it will choose the right photo for the application. Whenever we physically crop a photo like this, it will create new versions of those photos. But by then adding compression before we even upload them, we know that we've got a really fast loading selection of photos here that aren't going to be annoying or upsetting for the viewer. So now we've got that in place, we can start working around the spacing. At the moment, when I'm looking at my white space, this is just too compact at the moment, above and below. So this is where we can go spacing on this, which is probably easier on the gallery than, but we could instead add more spacing to the bottom of this button and to the top of this block, but we should be able to do all of it within the image section. So we go back into the image spacing with the gallery selected, and we look padding between selections, and we'll try that. And then we can manually adjust the padding above and below. I think we probably only need about 10 pixels. And the good thing here, we can adjust it top and bottom independently. So if we wanted to say a little bit more padding because there's text below, we can do that manually. So even though there's more padding above than below, but because of the way the flow of the content, that I think works better on the eye. But it's about getting to know all of this and start working with it. So we've got 3 photos there, and I think I'm going to repeat that section with 3 new photos below the bullet point list. And if we go back to ChatGPT, and we're going to add this section. I'm not going to change any of this text, but Vicky will have a template to go in and start working with that. So here, I'm going to add a text block. I'm going to put all of this in. And it's put in as a numbered list, but I can just switch it to bullet points here. And what I can do now is hold Shift and press Enter to create spacing between each bullet point. It's a bit of a workaround to get that nice and more evenly spaced. What I'm going to do is duplicate this button, and I'm going to remind them of the welcome pack below that section as well. And also we've got some spacing to do here as well. So padding, if we remember, it was 28 on the left. And we're going to increase the padding top and bottom. Sometimes you just do it by eye a little bit. In fact, I don't need anywhere near that padding at the bottom because the button is essentially attached to that text. So that's where I did too much there. So I want that. I think it's actually 0 at the bottom because the button flows nicer than from that text. But already that's starting to look quite nice, I think. I think we can probably add another gallery below, but now we've already got this in place. We can just duplicate the gallery and swap the images. So let's now just go in and replace each of these photos. So the first one, select from library again. And we can see that our new 3 photos that we edited for the previous part of the template is there. And I think it'd be nice to have this photo in as well with the time lapse. I think it looks stunning. Or we've already got it here. So maybe I think we'll leave that in there. And instead, we'll choose 3 different photos from our email campaigns folder, which we know are compressed. So this will be more about experiences. Once we've showcased the cabin, we can now look at 3 photos that will set the scene. So we've got the welcome pack here, or the food on the table there, which looks really nice. We've got the tub, and we've got then the massage therapy. So again, now it becomes really easy. We can edit the photos, simply crop them to 3x4, then move the crop location across. We've got a little bit of light coming in. So this one might benefit from just going into the settings here, and if we just bring the shadows down a little bit, bump the saturation up a tiny bit, and maybe bump the contrast and then the brightness up just a tiny bit. So it just gives it a bit more punch on the page without going in and doing anything advanced in Photoshop. And let's edit this one. Again, what we're trying to do is get most of the features in there. I think that probably frames it quite nicely. For me, it also takes the bath plug, which isn't one of the, well, I don't know what that's called, the overflow section. Okay, so that looks quite nice for that. We can go in and just bump up the saturation on these if we want. And on this one, it's really good as it is anyway. So I'm just going to bring up the contrast a tiny bit. Especially when they're smaller, we can just bump the contrast a little bit. And finally, if we're going to do the other 2, let's just tweak this one a tiny amount. And then finally, we're going to have one text block at the bottom before we bring into the discount code section. I can see there's no code being added at the moment, but this is ready to go for that. I think we'll leave the hot tub image in place, but I'll show you how we can add in the final piece of the puzzle in terms of the text here without it looking too... I'm trying to remove the space above and below that image so we got a really nice compact layout design. What I also want to do is probably just put a 2-pixel border, if I can, between each of these images. There we are. That's center padding. That's what I'm after. Name it slightly different to the website, so it's just take a case of finding it. So I'm going to put that on 4, just so we get a little bit of spacing between each of the photos. And of course, I need to do it on this one as well. So I can just go in and manually type 4 pixels there. Okay, that's starting to look really nice, I think. Not sure what you think. Last step now is to change this content. So we go back to ChatGPT. We're going to put that to paragraph. Right. What we're going to do here, we're going to go to the spacing, take the spacing all the way out to the right, but keep it I want it to match the spacing here. So sometimes, because it's slightly different spacing on this, this is an image with text alongside it, and it's the only way we can do it. So I'm just leaving the cursor there, and I'm going to move it up and just see if it aligns there. That's not bad by eye, is it? So we're going to keep that the same. But what we're going to do now is we want to get rid of the padding in the sections above and below. We want this nice and compact, or actually a 4-pixel border so it matches this grid frame here. So if we go to padding here, padding is top is 8 on this one, so we're going to drop it to 4 to get that closer. Now we can see that this is actually an extra section. So what we're going to do, we don't need this section here, so I can just delete that. And now put the padding. I think this can go back to 8. Now with this section, we'll add the padding. But with this one here, we're just going to go to the spacing again. And this time at the bottom, we bring it down to 0. We can see what that looks like. It's already looking quite nice. But what we can do in this section here now is spacing again. And we'll put it 4. Sorry, that's the wrong section. That was left and right. This is what I want. 4 pixels above, 4 pixels below. So that matches the flow then of the rest of the images in place. The only thing we don't have the same for this one, so I'm going to, just for consistency, we're going to go 4 above that. We don't need to worry about the bottom. So how's that looking? The 4 pixel is barely noticeable simply because we've got the dark background color. But I think that's looking a really nice, simple, consistent email template, which then Vicky can jump in and edit, swap the photos for the one she wants, put the content in, tweak it. As I said, I'm not a big fan of this type of bullet point layout. It's a real giveaway sign that it's ChatGPT content. So again, but the bullet points, I think this is more digestible. It may not have enough information, but that's why we next need to build a landing page which has loads of information that's really broken down in this type of style to both sell the experience, so people can't wait to stay after seeing all of these beautiful photos, but at the same time it's getting the important information across, and the photos will help to sell the information to make sure people read it, because they're going to be more likely to read it if it looks really nice. One thing we could do now at this stage is move the ordering of these sections. So it could be that we actually, instead of having the photos down there, we bring them up higher. And instead of having these photos here, we bring them above the list. And I'm not against that structure either. What we can do with this section instead is actually change up the color palette. So instead of having an invisible section color, we could bring it with the orange so it kind of ties in nicer, or we could even go and contrast it and put white. And then we can change the text color. And we've got our colors from our color palette so we can keep everything on brand. Alternatively, we can either go for the site palette or the email palette, or move my thumbnail out of the way. We can tweak it slightly. So I could just go for that stone color there, which I quite like. Okay, so a few tweaks there just to get it looking right. This is, again, another space we can remove now to make it look more compact. And it's just double checking the spacing's right. So we can see the spacing above that's 10 pixels. We want that to be 4, just so it ties in with the rest of the flow on that email template. I think that's probably a better lead into the email to go straight in with the photos. And even if it just means we've got a bit of work to do, just to tweak the padding. It's a little frustrating, nothing the end of the world. Squarespace are using both padding and spacing. I get why they are doing it, because padding is related to text, while spacing is the overall spacing. But I think just call it one thing would probably be more intuitive. But having said that, that's a nitpick. I find it much harder to create templates with a flexibility like this in something like MailChimp. I haven't used MailChimp for a couple of years, so it could have moved on quite a lot in terms of the editor. But I'd see MailChimp as being more like what WordPress was, where it allows you to do more things. It's more powerful, but at the same time, Squarespace always seemed to find a good balance between making it really useful for designers. And one thing we haven't checked is on mobile view either. So we just need to go and make sure we do that as well. But we can see it's pretty consistent on mobile, and that's looking good to me. And of course, mobile is going to be really important for this particular campaign type, because it's not business to business, it's someone coming to stay. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you've enjoyed. I've certainly enjoyed having a play around with it on my birthday. And yeah, the next step then would be to create that landing page to try and match in the overall style. So when you go from the email to the landing page, it's a consistent flow and it's part of the process, and it's just a nice kind of journey from one location to the destination. And we're trying to reassure that our visitors that they've gone to the right place. So with all of that taken into account, hope you've learned something about Squarespace email campaigns today. It's on my to-do list. We're putting together a roadmap for new content going forward, and Squarespace email campaigns is one of those. But now it's over to you. If you could leave a comment in terms of what type of content you think I should be creating in future. Should it be more about Squarespace email campaigns, or do you feel that from this you've got a good idea in terms of what you can do with it? Because one thing I can do quite easily is to start creating new different template designs, and where I'm going to be repeating a lot of the process, but just applying it to different applications, different businesses, different industry sectors. But once you've got a good understanding of the design flow, everything else comes from that. And there's a couple of things that I just want to say about this before we wrap up. One is I created this, or Ken created this, sorry, I'm not taking the credit from him, this entire project using SquareForge. So if you go across to squareforge.net, this is our rapid template builder, and he was able to shave about 30% off on the time of building this site and make it look unique, because it's not like any other template you can get for Squarespace, either their own or third party. This has nearly 300 different layout structures. We're launching version 2 this week, and from those 300 structures, I did the maths with ChatGPT, and it came back with billions, something like 7 or 8 billion combinations that you can choose on the design. I would have settled for a millions combinations because we'll never exhaust all of them. But by being able to mix and match the structures and the styles, A, if you're new to this, you can pick it up that much quicker. And B, if you're not new to this, it will save you a lot of time. We've built over 400 Squarespace websites since 2015. And during that time, we have made quite a lot of progress in terms of turning around the projects quicker, meaning that we have more time to work with the client directly. Or if something goes wrong, we can jump on and fix it. So not just because it's my birthday, but go across and check out squareforge.net and see if it fits you, whether you're building your first or 101st Squarespace site. Also, I have this week launched a new free workshop on our YouTube channels, but also on Pixel Haze Academy. It'll be on by the end of tomorrow, so the 19th of September. And that will give you an hour and 10 minutes as an introduction to digital marketing. I don't just show you how to use Canva, which is the tool we'll be focusing on in that workshop, but also I spend some time talking about the why as well as the how to. So many people get preoccupied with how do I create this in Canva? They don't stop and think, actually, is that the right approach for my business? How do I keep it on brand? How do I keep the styling all nice and consistent? So I've created an introductory course on this topic, and part of it was recorded in a workshop I delivered live. And I wanted to give you an idea of how I deliver this workshop live, just because I think the learning flow can be quite nice sometimes as well. And I've already recorded, and I just need to do some editing and processing on the videos, but I've already done one for an introduction to web design as well. They're going to be free on our website by just joining our free Squarespace membership. I'd strongly recommend, if you're interested in either web design or digital marketing, to sign up now, and you'll get the first link through when it goes live as well. It'll also be available on our YouTube channel, but through our Pixel Haze Academy, if you sign up via that, I'll give you some extra goodies as well. Also, final point, we now coach people through our two communities. We've got DIY community on SKOOL, that's SKOOL with a K, SKOOL, and for that's $15 a month. And for that one, you can just jump in, leave me a message, leave my team a message, and we'll be able to get back to you on individual support. So it's the problem that you're having with something like Squarespace email campaigns, as opposed to having to sift around online and wait for ages to find it. Just ask us directly. And if we don't know it, we might even create a video on it like this case. Also, then, if you're looking for more hands-on coaching, either to build your website or to get the most from it once it's live, looking at things like SEO, email campaigns like we've covered today, and you want one-to-one time or group time with me, then you can join our coaching community. We run 2 support sessions per week. If you're the only one who joins the call, you get up to half an hour of one-to-one time and support from me or a member of my team. And we've been trialing this for 2 months, and we are delighted with the results so far, because it allows us to A, learn more about what our students need, and B, it allows us to help more people without spreading ourselves too thin. It's focused attention support time, and we actually have a live call at 5 p.m. UK time today. So if you go ahead and sign up to our SKOOL community, the coaching one, you'll be able to jump into that call from as soon as this afternoon. Otherwise, I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my birthday. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.